Recently, my children's biological mother re-entered their lives, and now they are calling me names. My husband hasn't supported me, so I am filing for divorce. Me, 30-year-old female, has been married to my husband, 34, for 6 years, and he has twins, a boy and a girl. Both of them are 16 now. When we started dating, got married, we went to family therapy, and I made it clear that I was not trying to be their mother or replace their mother. Their mother hasn't been in their life since they were about 8. Life had settled into a comfortable rhythm for me and my family. 6 years of marriage blended seamlessly with my husband's twins. We'd navigated the complexities of step-parenting, finding our own unique groove in the family dynamic. They even started calling me mom when they were around 12. When their biological mother vanished from their lives 8 years prior, I never imagined she would resurface, nor did I anticipate the whirlwind of emotions that would follow. Recently, their bio mother came back into their lives and they were really excited. Things were great for about 6 months, and then they started to call me by my real name. That hurt, but it's what they chose to do and I never questioned it. Their excitement at reconnecting with their biological mother was palpable, radiating through the walls of our home. I watched them eagerly await her arrival, their anticipation tinged with a longing that I couldn't quite understand. For 6 months, everything seemed harmonious. They showered her with affection, catching up on lost time and building bridges that had been left in ruins for years. But with her return came a subtle shift, a fissure in the foundation of our family unit. Their once frequent use of the word mom to address me dwindled, replaced with the stark reality of my given name. Each time they uttered it, it felt like a tiny dagger, piercing the carefully constructed facade of familial bonds. I grappled with the hurt, swallowing it down with a forced smile, unwilling to let them see the cracks forming within me. They had a right to reconnect with their biological mother. Yet, the ache of being relegated to my given name echoed in the hollow chambers of my heart. I never questioned their choice, never demanded an explanation for the sudden shift in our dynamic. Instead, I buried my pain. Recently, they've been getting very disrespectful. The twins, once the embodiment of innocence and joy, have become agents of chaos. It began subtly, like a whisper on the wind, barely perceptible but impossible to ignore. They chafed against the confines of our household rules, pushing back against the boundaries that had once kept our family unit intact. Curfew became a mere suggestion, a trivial inconvenience to be disregarded at will. Their bedrooms transformed into veritable war zones, strewn with the detritus of their adolescent rebellion, a silent protest against the order I had fought so hard to maintain. But it was their words that cut the deepest, each barb a venomous arrow aimed squarely at my heart. "You're not our real mom," they spat, the words dripping with contempt. I recoiled at the accusation, the weight of their words crushing me beneath their burden. How could they not see the love I had poured into their lives, the sacrifices I had made in the name of family? They're talking back to me, stating that I'm not their real mom, that I'm the reason she left, which is not true. I didn't meet him until almost a year and a half after she left. That now that she's back, they don't need me anymore. 3 weeks ago, there was a big blow-up where my stepson called me a bitch. I felt the blood drain from my face, my heart pounding in my chest as I struggled to comprehend the magnitude of his betrayal. In that moment, all sense of reason fled. I snatched his phone from his trembling hands, my fingers trembling with a mixture of rage, and told him to stay in his room until his dad came back, but instead he ran out and went to his mom's. She came over and it was a big argument. She tried to hit me and I pushed her out of my house. My stepdaughter told me if I ever put my hands on her mom again, then she'd kick my ass. They both went to their mom's place. In the quiet aftermath of the storm that had torn through the fabric of our once happy home, the memories of happier days lingered like a bittersweet ache in my heart. I cast my mind back to those moments of joy, the simple pleasures that had bound us together as a family. I remember the laughter that had filled our home on lazy Saturday afternoons, the sound of their voices mingling with mine as we shared stories and dreams over bowls of melting ice cream. It was a ritual, our own little tradition born out of love and shared experiences. We would gather around the kitchen table, our faces sticky with sweet indulgence, as we savored each creamy spoonful, the taste of chocolate and vanilla a comforting reminder of the bond that held us together. And then there were the adventures we had shared, the memories we had made on family vacations to Disney World. I can still feel the warmth of their small hands clasped in mine as we navigated the crowded streets, their eyes wide with wonder at the magic that surrounded us. We would spend hours exploring every nook and cranny of the theme park, their laughter ringing out like music in the air as we rode roller coasters and met our favorite characters. But now, in the aftermath of the storm, those happy days felt like a distant memory, a faded photograph tucked away in the recesses of my mind. The joy that had once filled our home had been replaced by a hollow emptiness, a numb detachment that left me feeling adrift in a sea of uncertainty. Gone were the days of chauffeuring them to their various sports and activities, replaced instead by a sense of resignation that weighed heavily upon my shoulders. I would sit in the driver's seat of the car, the radio playing softly in the background, as I waited for them to emerge from the house. But they never came, their absence a stark reminder of the distance that now separated us. And so, with a heavy heart and weary soul, I made the decision to step back, to allow their mother to take on the responsibilities that I had once shouldered alone. I would no longer wake them up for school or ferry them to their extracurricular activities, instead, leaving them to navigate the complexities of their daily lives without my guiding hand. It was a painful decision, one born out of necessity rather than choice. But in the end, I knew that it was the only way forward, a small step towards reclaiming my own sense of self amidst the chaos that threatened to consume us all. And as I watched them disappear into the distance, their figures fading into the horizon like ghosts in the mist, I knew that it was time to forge a new path forward, one that would lead me back to myself. And then came the bombshell, a revelation that shattered the fragile peace that had settled over our fractured family. We were supposed to go to Disney World for their spring break this week, but I canceled everything. I told them and my husband, and I guess they thought I was bluffing. We were supposed to leave Thursday night, and when I didn't start the usual vacation roundup, they were shocked. They started saying I was jealous that their mom came back in their lives, that I'm a horrible person, I'm selfish. There was some name-calling and my husband was silent. They hurled insults like daggers, each one finding its mark as they lashed out in their pain and confusion. I asked him if he was going to step in, but his response was cold and indifferent, his words a knife twisted in the wound that was already bleeding. He said I was wrong for canceling. And so I stood alone, a solitary figure amidst the wreckage of our shattered dreams. For in that moment, I realized that I was fighting a battle that could not be won, a war of attrition that had already claimed its casualties. I left and went to stay in a hotel. I knew that I could no longer bear the burden of our fractured family alone. With a heavy heart and weary soul, I made a decision born of necessity, a choice to seek solace in the quiet refuge of a hotel room, far removed from the chaos that had consumed our once happy home. I needed time to heal the wounds that had been inflicted upon my soul, time to find the strength to rebuild the shattered remnants of our fractured family. He has been blowing my phone up asking me to come back, and yesterday he told me that their mother disappeared again. His voice, pleading and desperate, pierced the silence like a knife, its sharp edges cutting through the numbness that had settled over me like a shroud. He spoke of their tears, of their cries for forgiveness that fell upon deaf ears in my absence. They too have been calling me, crying and apologizing. In their moment of desperation, they had turned to me, seeking redemption in the arms of the woman who had loved them unconditionally, despite the wounds they had inflicted upon her heart. But I don't want to do this anymore. I don't feel like I'm part of their family, and they can't just cry and come back now that she disappeared. The love that had once bound us together as a family had been replaced by a sense of resignation, a recognition that our paths had diverged in ways we could never have anticipated. And so, with a heavy heart and tear-streaked cheeks, I spoke the words that would irrevocably alter the course of our lives. I want a divorce, I said, my voice barely above a whisper, as the weight of my decision settled like a stone in the pit of my stomach. I watched as my husband's expression shifted from shock to resignation, his eyes filled with a sadness that mirrored my own. And as I turned to leave, the silence of the empty room echoing in my ears, I knew that there was nothing left to say. In the stillness of the night, as the city outside my window lay shrouded in darkness, I found myself grappling with the weight of my own emotions, the turmoil of my thoughts threatening to overwhelm me. Yes, I knew their mother was manipulating them, twisting their fragile emotions, like a puppeteer pulling the strings of marionettes. I never said otherwise, but even with this knowledge, the sting of their betrayal cut deep, a wound that refused to heal no matter how hard I tried to ignore it. Yes, they are 16 years old, an age teetering on the precipice between childhood and adulthood, but even in their youth they don't have the right to treat me this way. Being 16 doesn't mean you get to be disrespectful and threaten me. Despite the venom that dripped from their lips, I have always been in their corner. I had opened my heart to them, embracing them as my own flesh and blood, despite the absence of a biological connection. I know their feelings matter in this, but I am a person too with feelings that ran just as deep as theirs. And as I stood alone in the darkness, I realized that it was time to reclaim my own voice, to assert my own worth in a world that had seemed determined to diminish it. I am not only considering or moving forward with this divorce. The child acts only took a small part in my consideration, the rest are due to the fact that my husband did not back me up in this. I had always believed that marriage was a partnership, a sacred bond forged in love and mutual respect. But as I watched him stand idly by, his silence a damning indictment of his loyalty, I couldn't help but wonder if our union had been built on shaky ground from the start and that he had never loved me. The realization cuts deep, If I can't count on him to help me navigate this tough situation that we were all going through, then why should I stay? That does not mean that I should be treated the way I was being treated. That is not normal 16-year-old behavior. To threaten me? Call me vile names? I just need time for myself. And yet, even as I acknowledge my own flaws, I cannot shake the feeling of betrayal that lingers like a bitter taste upon my tongue. To be threatened and insulted by those whom I had loved and cared for as my own, it cuts me to the core. A wound that refuses to heal no matter how hard I try to ignore it. And I don't want an apology just because their bio mother ran out on them again. Yes, their mother's sudden disappearance had reignited old wounds, dredging up memories of past betrayals and broken promises. But even as I struggle to make sense of the chaos that surrounds me, I want an apology because they really mean it, and I don't believe anyone can be truly sorry 2 days after their mother vanished again. I do not doubt the sincerity of their words, nor do I question the depth of their pain. But forgiveness cannot be rushed, nor can it be won through empty gestures and half-hearted apologies. I need more than words to heal the wounds that have been inflicted upon my soul, more than empty promises to mend the shattered remnants of our fractured family. I would never just abandon them. But I do need time for myself because my feelings were disregarded. But I am not selfish for needing time for myself, for acknowledging the depth of my own pain amidst the chaos that threatens to consume us all. Yes, I am an adult, but I am also human, with feelings that run just as deep as theirs. And in this moment of vulnerability, I realize that I cannot be the pillar of strength that they so desperately need, not when my own foundation is so fragile and tenuous. As I sit in the dimly lit hotel room, the gentle hum of the air conditioner providing a soothing backdrop to the cacophony of thoughts that swirl within my mind, I find myself grappling with the complexities of human emotion. The events of the past few days weigh heavily on my heart, a burden too heavy to bear alone. I had never asked or expected them to be perfect, for I knew that imperfection was the very essence of humanity. But even in the midst of our flaws and shortcomings, there had always been love, a bond that transcended the trials and tribulations of everyday life. I had never expected them to be the most mature people, but I had hoped that they would at least understand the depth of my pain, the wounds that their words had inflicted upon my soul. They have feelings and so do I. I love them with a fierceness that defies reason. They are my children, my heart and soul woven into the fabric of their being, but this is a very complicated situation. This is not because they called me a bitch. Yes, they called me a bitch, but I have been called worse. I am a woman, strong and resilient in the face of adversity. This is ultimately about my husband not backing me up during this situation, and yes, I am hurt that they called me that I'm allowed to be. It hurts even worse coming from two people who I love dearly and would never hurt or want any harm to come to them. I had always believed that marriage was a partnership, a sacred vow to stand by each other through thick and thin. But as I watch him stand on the sidelines, his silence a painful reminder of his failure to stand up for me, I cannot help but feel a deep sense of betrayal. To all the step-parents navigating the often rocky terrain of blended families, I want to offer a few words of advice from my own perspective. I understand the challenges you face, the emotional roller coaster of loving someone who comes with their own children, and the hurdles you've likely overcome to earn acceptance in their lives. First and foremost, remember that building a family in a blended situation requires teamwork. You and your partner must be on the same page, communicating openly and honestly about your hopes, fears, and expectations. Without this solid foundation of mutual understanding and support, it's easy for resentment and discord to seep in, undermining all the efforts you've made to create a loving and harmonious home. Embrace the unique dynamics of your blended family. Every family is different, and what works for one may not work for another. Be flexible and adaptable, willing to adjust your expectations and approach as needed to accommodate the needs and preferences of all family members. The key is that you and your partner must work together to build a family. It's the only way for things to work out. Otherwise, all of your efforts and all the love you pour in will be useless. Hello, I have been getting a lot of messages asking for an update. I am now in a place to be able to give an update. You can look at my previous post for what this is about. I went back to the house 2 days ago. My husband and I had agreed to sit down and have a long overdue conversation about what had transpired, about the cracks that had begun to form in the foundation of our family. As we sat across from each other in the dimly lit living room, the memories of happier days lingered like ghosts in the corners of my mind. I couldn't help but cast my thoughts back to the countless afternoons spent together as a family, the sun-drenched days filled with laughter and love. But now, as I sat across from my husband, the gravity of our situation pressing down upon us like a leaden weight, I knew that we could no longer ignore the cracks that had begun to form in the foundation of our family. We had a long talk about what happened and how I didn't feel protected by him, and how he knew how disrespectful they were being but didn't stop anything. As I sat across from my husband, the weight of his words settling like a leaden weight in the pit of my stomach, I couldn't help but feel a sense of disbelief wash over me. He said that he still loved his ex, and that's why, pretty much. He spoke of his lingering feelings for his ex-wife, of the fear that had gripped him in the aftermath of her sudden return to their children's lives. He didn't want to do anything for her to leave them again, them as in him and the twins. But that didn't change how he felt about me. I listened in stunned silence, the air heavy with the weight of unspoken truths and unresolved emotions. How could he expect me to believe that his heart still belonged to another, even as he professed his love for me? It was a contradiction that left me reeling, a bitter taste of betrayal that lingered on my tongue. The reality of our situation crashing down around me like a tidal wave, I knew that the happy memories of our past could no longer sustain us. His admission of lingering feelings for his ex-wife was a wound that cut deep, a betrayal that shattered the fragile illusion of our marriage. I told him that I've been there, not her, and how could he still love her, and it was very emotional and there was crying and yelling. I made the decision to move along with the divorce. I spoke to the twins and they cried and said it's their fault and to forgive them and their dad and not to leave. With a heavy heart and a voice thick with emotion, I explained to them that while I still loved them dearly, remaining with their father was not a path I could choose. I reassured them that I would always be there for them, that our bond would endure even in the face of adversity. But I also made it clear that their actions had consequences, that they could not treat people with such disrespect and expect everything to simply return to normal. I told them that as much as I loved them, staying with their dad and in this home was not an option, but I would still love to have a relationship with them if they want. But I am still very much hurt by what happened and would still appreciate a little more time for myself. I did move out and I was staying in a unit in one of my rental properties. Exciting news, I bought my first house. It was a fairly quick process. I'm excited for what's next. I bought my first house ever, and next month I am taking a break from work for a few weeks or the whole month. Maybe 2 or 3, and doing some exploring of the world and healing and finding myself. I lost myself in the twins and my husband and didn't really focus on what I wanted and what made me happy. So I bought tickets again for Disney World. I have also made plans to go to Thailand next month, and from there, I have no clue. I'm doing some spontaneous trips. I have always wanted to see the 7 wonders of the world. Anyway, I am really happy to be getting a break. I told the kids I would love to have them over for dinner when I get settled into my new place. I do feel bad about canceling their trip to Disney, so I am thinking about funding a trip for them to go this summer for their 17th birthday. Just not with me. I'm excited to be traveling alone and I need the mental break. That is all really.